She was 7 months pregnant, on her feet for the 9th hour, wiping down a table in a restaurant where a glass of wine cost more than she made in a shift. Her uniform was damp with sweat. Her back ached. Her ankles were swollen. She pressed the cloth against the marble surface and leaned into it with both hands. Not because the table needed cleaning, but because if she didn't lean, she would fall. The hostess seated a party of 4 at the corner booth. Sophia didn't look up. She wiped the next table. She refilled the water station. She picked up a napkin from the floor and straightened the chairs. She had 3 more hours on her feet. Then she heard a voice she hadn't heard in 5 months. A voice that used to say, "I love you," and now lived in her nightmares. "Sophia?" She looked up. Connor Cole was standing 6 feet away, in a blue suit that cost more than her rent, a watch that cost more than her car, and an expression that wasn't guilt. It wasn't surprise. It was satisfaction. The faint, unmistakable satisfaction of a man looking at someone he discarded and confirming that he was right to do it. He looked at her uniform. He looked at her belly. He looked at the cloth in her hand. And he said, loud enough for the hostess to hear, "I always told you that you'd end up right back where you started." What Connor Cole didn't know, what nobody in that restaurant knew, was that Sophia Moreno hadn't taken this job because she was desperate. She had taken it because this restaurant sat on a piece of property owned by a shell company called Meridian Holdings, LLC. A shell company that was supposed to be worth $400,000 on Connor's divorce disclosures. A shell company that actually controlled $74 million in commercial real estate across 3 states. A shell company that Connor had hidden from the court, from his ex-wife, and from every auditor who touched the divorce. Sophia had been working in this restaurant for 4 months. Not for the tips, for the lease agreement in the manager's office, the vendor invoices that listed Meridian as the property owner, and the booking records that proved Connor dined here twice a month, at a restaurant he swore under oath he had no connection to. She wasn't wiping tables because she had no choice. She was wiping tables because the evidence was in the building, and she needed a reason to be inside it. What happened next didn't just reopen a divorce, it reversed it. And the man in the blue suit was about to discover that the woman he threw away had spent every night for 5 months building the case that would take back everything he stole. Pause for 2 seconds and help me do something fun. Comment your city and country. I want to see how global this community really is, and I am looking for the 2 viewers watching the farthest apart today so I can pin the winner. Now back to the story, because things are about to get very interesting. Sophia Moreno met Connor Cole at a fundraiser in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was 26, a graphic designer at a small branding agency, and had been invited by a client. He was 31, had just closed his 3rd real estate deal, and was wearing a suit he couldn't quite afford yet. They talked for 45 minutes by the bar. He asked for her number. She gave it to him. They married 2 years later. Small ceremony. Tilda, Sophia's mother, flew in from Newark. Connor's family, old money from Connecticut, sent a card. They didn't attend. They didn't approve. They had made that clear. For the first 3 years, the marriage worked. Connor was building Cole Capital Group, a commercial real estate firm that acquired distressed properties, renovated them, and leased them to restaurant chains, medical offices, and retail brands. Sophia handled the early-stage branding. She designed the company logo, the pitch decks, the investor materials. She worked unpaid. She called it Building Together. By year 3, Cole Capital was worth $180 million. By year 4, $640 million. By year 5, the year the marriage ended, $2.8 billion. 14 properties had become 112. The distressed deals had become institutional acquisitions. The husband who couldn't afford his suit at the fundraiser now owned a penthouse in South Park, a vacation house in Hilton Head, and a private jet that Sophia had never been on. The money changed Connor, not gradually, violently. He started coming home at midnight. He stopped answering calls. He hired an executive assistant named Kristen who attended every dinner, every trip, every event that Sophia was not invited to. When Sophia asked about her, Connor said, "She's staff." Sophia found the texts on a Tuesday night. She wasn't looking for them. Connor had left his phone on the kitchen counter, face up, and a message appeared on the screen while Sophia was cleaning the dishes. The message was from Kristen. It didn't contain words, it contained a photograph. Sophia didn't scream. She didn't cry. She picked up the phone, took a screenshot, sent it to her own email, and set the phone back on the counter. She called her mother that night. "Mama, I'm leaving." "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not staying." Subscribe now and stay to the end because I am going to show you one financial disclosure that Connor's attorney submitted during the divorce that contained the lie worth $74 million. And when I reveal what Sophia found inside the restaurant where she worked, you will understand why this pregnant woman wiping tables was the most dangerous person in Charlotte. This is not drama. This is fraud. And we are about to break down exactly how she proved it. Sophia filed for divorce in Mecklenburg County. She hired Rachel George, a 39-year-old family law attorney with a small practice in uptown Charlotte. Rachel was experienced, careful, and underfunded. Her retainer was $8,000. Sophia paid it with savings from her design work. Connor hired Donnie Mulkey, a partner at one of the largest family law firms in the state. Donnie billed $1,100 an hour. His strategy was the same one every billionaire divorce attorney uses. Bury the assets, inflate the expenses, depreciate the value of everything, and present a picture of a man who is wealthy on paper but cash poor in practice. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state. Marital assets are divided fairly, not necessarily equally. The key word is marital. If an asset can be classified as separate property, owned before the marriage, inherited, or held in a structure that predates the union, it doesn't get divided. Donnie Mulkey reclassified $2.1 billion of Connor's $2.8 billion portfolio as separate property, held in trusts, LLCs, and holding companies that Donnie argued were established before the marriage or funded with premarital capital. The remaining $700 million was presented as marital property. But after deducting business debts, operational liabilities, and depreciation, the net marital estate was valued at $24 million. Sophia's share, under equitable distribution, was calculated at $12 million. But Donnie filed a motion arguing that Sophia had made minimal financial contribution to the business and should receive a reduced share. The judge, who had 300 cases on his docket and limited forensic resources, accepted Donnie's valuations and awarded Sophia $120,000. $120,000 from a $2.8 billion estate. After 5 years of marriage, unpaid branding work, and the logo that still appeared on every Cole Capital property in the Southeast. Rachel George objected. She requested a forensic audit of the financial disclosures. The judge denied it. Insufficient grounds. Rachel appealed. The appeal was denied. The deadline had passed by 11 days because Rachel's small office missed a filing date. Sophia signed the settlement in Rachel's office on a Thursday afternoon. She was too tired to fight. She was too broke to appeal again. She signed the paper, took the $120,000, and moved into a one-bedroom apartment in West Charlotte. 2 weeks later, she missed her period. She took the test at the kitchen table. Positive, 7 weeks pregnant, Connor's child. Sophia sat at the table for an hour. She pressed both hands flat on the surface. She looked at the test. She looked at the apartment, small, clean, empty. And she made 2 decisions. First, she would not tell Connor about the baby. Not yet. Not until she had leverage. Because telling Connor now, while he held $2.8 billion and she held $120,000, would give him the power to control the child the same way he controlled the money. Through lawyers, through courts, through the machinery that had already failed her once. Second, she would find the lie. Because Rachel George had told her something in the final meeting that stayed with her. Sophia, the numbers don't add up. His disclosures show 112 properties, but only account for 94 in the financial statements. 18 properties are missing. If we could prove those properties exist and were hidden, we could reopen the settlement on grounds of fraud. But I need evidence. And evidence costs money and access, two things we don't have. Sophia didn't have money, but she could get access. The restaurant was called Bellamy's. It sat on a corner in South Park, Charlotte's wealthiest commercial district. White tablecloths, valet parking, a wine list with bottles that cost $400. The kind of restaurant where billionaires celebrated deals and waitresses earned $11.50 an hour plus tips. Sophia had found Bellamy's the same way she found everything, by reading the boring stuff. She had spent 3 months after the divorce poring over public property records, business registrations, and county tax filings. She couldn't afford a forensic accountant, so she did it herself, at her kitchen table, after midnight. The same way she had designed pitch decks for Connor's company. Meticulous, detailed, and unpaid. She found Meridian Holdings LLC in a Delaware corporate registry. It was one of the 18 missing properties, a holding company registered 2 years into the marriage, controlled by a trust in Connor's name, and listed as the owner of 7 commercial properties across North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. Total assessed value, $74 million. On Connor's divorce disclosures, Meridian was listed as a dormant premarital investment vehicle worth $400,000. Dormant, a company that owned 7 buildings and collected $6.2 million in annual rent, was described as dormant. One of the 7 properties was the building that housed Bellamy's restaurant. Meridian was the landlord. The restaurant paid $28,000 per month in rent, directly to a company that Connor told the court was worth less than a house in the suburbs. Sophia walked into Bellamy's on a Monday morning and applied for a waitress position. She was 4 months pregnant. The general manager, Reggie Upton, looked at her belly and hesitated. "Are you sure? This is a lot of time on your feet." "I've worked on my feet my whole life. I can handle it." Reggie hired her. He needed staff. She started the next day. From her first shift, Sophia was working 2 jobs. The visible job, waitress. Taking orders, carrying plates, wiping tables, smiling at customers who didn't look at her face. The invisible job, documenting everything. The lease agreement was framed behind the door in Reggie's office. Sophia read it during her break. Tenant, Bellamy's Restaurant Group, LLC. Landlord, Meridian Holdings, LLC. Monthly rent, $28,000. Lease term, 10 years. She photographed it with her phone. The vendor invoices were filed in a cabinet in the back office. Property management fees, maintenance charges, insurance, all billed by Meridian Holdings. Sophia photographed 6 months of invoices during a closing shift when Reggie was in the dining room. The reservation system was digital, a tablet at the hostess stand. Sophia checked the booking history on her 3rd week. Connor Cole had a standing reservation. Table 7. Corner booth. Every other Tuesday. The system logged his name, his phone number, and his credit card, a card linked to a Cole Capital corporate account. A man who told the court he had no connection to Meridian Holdings dined every 2 weeks at a restaurant that paid rent to Meridian Holdings, using a credit card from the company he said was separate from the marital estate. Sophia photographed every reservation entry. She forwarded everything to Rachel George. Rachel called her at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night. Sophia was soaking her feet in a bucket of warm water, her belly resting against the kitchen table. "Sophia, this is enough. The lease, the invoices, the reservation records. Combined with the property registration showing Meridian was formed during the marriage, this is a textbook case of fraud on the court. We can file a Rule 60(b) motion to reopen the settlement." "When?" "As soon as you're ready. But I need one more thing." "What?" "I need him in the building. On the record. At a time we can document. If we can show that he physically patronizes a restaurant owned by a company he swore was dormant, it destroys his entire disclosure. It proves he knew Meridian was active. Because he was eating dinner there twice a month. Sophia looked at the reservation system on her phone. Connor's next booking was in 11 days. Table 7, 7:30 p.m. Party of 4. He's coming in 11 days. Then 11 days from now, we take the photograph. Real quick, pause and drop a comment below. Tell me if you have ever been cheated in a divorce or a deal and had to find the proof yourself because nobody else would help. Share your thoughts, because this community is built on people who refuse to accept the lie. 11 days later, Tuesday evening, 7:22 p.m. Sophia was on her 9th hour. Her uniform was damp with sweat. Her back ached in the place it always ached now, the lower left, where the baby pressed against her spine. Her ankles were swollen. She had eaten a granola bar for lunch and a cup of soup at 4 p.m. She was 7 months pregnant and carrying a tray of entrees to table 3 when the front door opened. Connor Cole walked in. Blue suit, Rolex, 3 business associates behind him. The hostess greeted him by name. "Good evening, Mr. Cole, your table is ready," and led them to table 7, the corner booth. Sophia set down the tray at table 3. Her hands were steady, her heart was not. She hadn't seen Connor since the day she signed the divorce papers. 5 months. In that time, she had moved to a new apartment, started a new job, grown a child inside her body, and built a case that could dismantle his financial empire. She had done it alone, at night, on swollen ankles, at a kitchen table, while working double shifts at a restaurant that existed on land he had stolen from her. She pulled out her phone. She texted Rachel one word. "Here." Rachel's reply: "Get the photograph, table, face, and the Meridian lease in frame if possible. I've filed the motion. It lands on the judge's desk tomorrow morning." Sophia tucked her phone away. She picked up a cloth. She began wiping down the table nearest the corner booth, the table she had been cleaning when Connor arrived. This was the moment the thumbnail captured. The pregnant woman, the damp uniform, the marble table, the man in the blue suit watching from 6 feet away. Connor saw her. He didn't gasp. He didn't flinch. He set down his menu and studied her the way a man studies something he used to own. "Sophia?" She looked up. She met his eyes. She said nothing. He looked at her uniform. He looked at her belly. His eyes moved from her face to her hands. The same hands that had designed his company logo. The same hands now pressing a damp cloth against a table in a restaurant where he was about to spend $800 on dinner. "I always told you that you'd end up right back where you started." Sophia didn't respond. She wiped the table. She straightened the chairs. She turned and walked to the service station. But as she turned, she angled her phone, tucked between the cloth and her apron, and captured the photograph. Connor Cole, Table 7, Bellamy's Restaurant. The Meridian Holdings lease visible through the open office door behind him. His face, the table, and the company name, all in one frame. Melanie Mace, her co-worker, was at the service station. She saw Sophia's face. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You're shaking." "I know, but I'm fine. I just finished something." Sophia sent the photograph to Rachel at 7:31 p.m. Rachel received it, verified the metadata, date, time, location, and added it to Exhibit 7 of the Rule 60B motion. The motion was filed electronically with the Mecklenburg County Superior Court at 8:14 a.m. the following morning. If you love your mom, you need to subscribe right now, because at the end of this video, I am revealing what Connor's own attorney did when he found out about the fraudulent disclosure. And when I show you the deal Donnie Mulkey tried to cut to save himself, you will realize the man who hid the $74 million knew exactly what he was doing and kept records. Trust me, the attorney's records are worth the wait. A Rule 60B motion showing it was formed during the marriage, not before, as Connor's disclosures claimed. Exhibit 2, property tax records for 7 commercial buildings owned by Meridian, with a combined assessed value of $74 million. not $400,000 as disclosed.
Your Honor, the evidence
Exhibit
is clear.
3. 6 months of vendor invoices from Bellamy's Restaurant to Meridian Holdings, showing active management, rent collection, and property maintenance. Exhibit 4. The Bellamy's lease agreement naming Meridian Holdings as landlord, with a 10-year term and $28,000 monthly rent. Exhibit 5. Bellamy's reservation record showing Connor Cole's standing biweekly reservation at Table 7, linked to a Cole Capital corporate credit card. Exhibit 6. Connor's original divorce disclosure, sworn under oath, listing Meridian Holdings as dormant premarital investment vehicle. Approximate value $400,000. Exhibit 7. The photograph. Connor Cole, seated at Table 7, at a restaurant owned by the company he swore was dormant. Date stamped. GPS tagged. His face, the table, the Meridian name on the lease through the open office door. Rachel's legal argument was 3 sentences. The respondent swore under oath that Meridian Holdings LLC was a dormant premarital entity worth $400,000. The evidence shows Meridian is an active holding company formed during the marriage, controlling $74 million in commercial real estate, collecting $6.2 million in annual rental income. The respondent dines biweekly at a restaurant that pays rent to this entity. The original disclosure was fraudulent. The motion was assigned to Judge Eleanor Banks, a different judge than the one who had approved the original settlement. Judge Banks was 57, had spent 24 years on the family bench, and had a particular antipathy for asset concealment. She had reversed 3 divorce settlements in the previous 2 years on fraud grounds. She read the motion. She read the exhibits. She issued an order within 72 hours. The divorce settlement was reopened. Connor Cole was ordered to appear for a hearing and produce complete financial records for Meridian Holdings LLC and all affiliated entities. Connor received the order on a Friday afternoon. He called Donnie Mulkey. "What is this?" "It's a Rule 60B motion. Your ex-wife is alleging asset fraud." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that Meridian Holdings is worth $74 million, and you told the court it was worth $400,000. Silence. "Donnie, you told me the structure was clean." "I told you the structure was defensible. Defensible and clean are not the same thing. And your ex-wife apparently got a job at a restaurant, sitting on one of your properties, and documented everything from the inside." "She did what?" "She worked there, Connor, as a waitress, for 4 months, while pregnant. She photographed the lease, the invoices, the reservation system, and you sitting at Table 7 on a Tuesday night." Connor was quiet for a long time. Then, "Can we fight it?" "Connor, she has the corporate registration, the property records, the lease, the vendor invoices, and a photograph of you dining at a restaurant owned by a company you swore was dormant. The only thing we can fight is the severity of the penalty." The hearing was held 6 weeks later. Sophia was 8.5 months pregnant. She sat at the plaintiff's table with Rachel George. She wore a black maternity dress. Her hands were folded over her belly. Connor sat at the defense table with Donnie Mulkey and 2 associate attorneys. He wore the same blue suit. He didn't look at Sophia. Judge Banks opened the hearing. "This court has reviewed the movant's Rule 60B motion and supporting exhibits. The evidence presented raises serious questions about the accuracy of the respondent's original financial disclosures. I've ordered a forensic accounting review, which has been completed." She held up the forensic report. "The review confirms that Meridian Holdings LLC controls 7 commercial properties with a combined market value of $74.3 million and generates $6.2 million in annual rental income. The entity was formed 14 months after the marriage, not before, as stated in the original disclosure. The entity was described as dormant in the disclosure. It is not dormant. It is one of the most active holding companies in the respondent's portfolio. She looked at Connor. "Mr. Cole, your sworn disclosure to this court stated that Meridian Holdings was a dormant premarital vehicle worth $400,000. The forensic review shows it was formed during your marriage, is actively managed, and is worth $74 million. That's not a rounding error. That's fraud on the court." Connor's attorney stood. "Your Honor, the valuation discrepancy reflects a difference in accounting methodology. The $400,000 figure represents the entity's book value at the time of—" "Mr. Mulkey," Judge Banks removed her glasses. "I've been on this bench for 24 years. I have heard every version of accounting methodology that exists. A company that collects $6.2 million a year in rent is not worth $400,000. A company that manages 7 buildings is not dormant. And a man who dines bi-weekly at a restaurant owned by that company does not get to claim he has no connection to it." She turned to Sophia. "Ms. Moreno, the original settlement awarded you $120,000 from a marital estate that this court now believes was substantially undervalued. The forensic review has identified 18 entities, not just Meridian, that were mischaracterized in the original disclosure. The combined concealed value is approximately $412 million. The courtroom shifted. $412 million, hidden across 18 entities. 18 shell companies that Donnie Mulkey had structured, valued, and certified as premarital, dormant, or worthless. And every single one was active, formed during the marriage, and generating income." Judge Banks continued. "Under North Carolina General Statutes, Section 5021, fraud on the court in an equitable distribution proceeding permits this court to revisit the entire settlement. Given the scope of the concealment, I am ordering a full redistribution of all marital assets, including the 18 previously excluded entities." She paused. "Additionally, I am referring this matter to the Mecklenburg County District Attorney for investigation of perjury and contempt of court. Mr. Cole, you signed your disclosure under oath. Mr. Mulkey, you certified it as complete and accurate. Both of you should prepare accordingly. If you are still watching, you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode, because this exact pattern of hidden assets and divorce fraud shows up in another billionaire case I am covering soon. And the restaurant infiltration strategy Sophia used here becomes even more important in that story. The redistribution hearing took 4 months. During that time, Sophia gave birth. A girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She named her Elena, after Connor's mother, the one woman in the Cole family who had sent a gift when they married. Tilda flew in from Newark and stayed for 3 weeks. She slept on the couch. She held Elena while Sophia slept. She cooked dinner and washed dishes and did everything a mother does when her daughter has been fighting a war and needs to rest. But here is the detail I told you to wait for. The secret that nobody in that courtroom understood. Donnie Mulkey, Connor's divorce attorney, the man who had structured the 18 shell companies and certified the fraudulent disclosures, had kept records. Not the kind of records an attorney keeps for a client. The kind of records a man keeps for himself, to protect himself if the client ever turns. When the DA investigation began, Donnie's firm conducted an internal review. They found a file labeled Cole, Parallel Structure Notes. Inside, Donnie's personal notes documenting every conversation with Connor about the asset concealment. Dates, instructions, Connor's exact words. One note, dated 3 months before the divorce was finalized, read, "CC, Connor Cole, instructed restructure of 18 entities into premarital classification. CC aware that entities were formed during marriage. CC directive, make them disappear. She gets nothing. She gets nothing." Donnie Mulkey had written down the words of a man who believed his ex-wife would never fight back, who believed that $120,000 would be enough to make her go away, who believed that a pregnant woman wiping tables at a restaurant was proof that he had won. Donnie cut a deal with the DA. He provided the notes, the emails, and the restructuring documents in exchange for immunity from perjury charges. Connor Cole was left without his attorney, without his defense, and without the one man who knew where all the bodies were buried. because the man who buried them had dug them back up. Connor was found in contempt of court. He was fined $2.4 million. The perjury investigation resulted in a misdemeanor plea, no prison time, but a permanent record. His disclosure was voided. The full marital estate, $2.8 billion, was reevaluated. The redistribution awarded Sophia $340 million. Not the original $120,000. Not a revised share of the fraudulent numbers. A full equitable distribution of the actual marital estate, including all 18 hidden entities, adjusted for Sophia's contribution to the company's early-stage branding, her unpaid labor during the first 3 years, and a punitive enhancement for Connor's fraud. $340 million, earned by a woman who took a waitressing job at $11.50 an hour to get inside a building owned by the man who stole from her. Sophia did not move to a penthouse. She moved to a 4-bedroom house in the Myers Park neighborhood of Charlotte, a quiet street with old oak trees and a yard where Elena could play. Tilda moved in permanently. "You don't have to stay, Mama." "I'm staying. Somebody has to make sure this baby eats vegetables." Sophia used $14 million of the settlement to establish the Moreno Women's Legal Fund, a nonprofit providing forensic accounting services and legal representation to women in divorce proceedings who cannot afford to fight asset concealment. The fund was staffed by 3 forensic accountants and 2 family law attorneys. Every client was pro bono. Rachel George was named the fund's legal director. She left her small practice and took the position at the same salary she had been making, $94,000. When a reporter asked why she didn't negotiate for more, Rachel said, "Because this fund exists because a woman couldn't afford to prove what was true. My job is to make sure the next woman can." In its first year, the Moreno Women's Legal Fund reopened 11 divorce settlements across North Carolina. In 7 of those cases, concealed assets were identified. The combined recovered value, $28 million. 11 women who had signed settlements they knew were wrong because they couldn't afford to fight. Sophia went back to Bellamy's one time after the settlement. Not to eat, not to celebrate. She went to see Reggie Upton. She walked in through the front door, not the service entrance. She wasn't in uniform, she was wearing a dress. Elena was in her arms, 3 months old, asleep against her shoulder. Reggie was at the hostess stand. He saw her and his eyes went wide. "Sophia?" "Hey, Reggie. You look different." "I feel different. I heard about the case. Everybody here did. You were working in my restaurant the whole time and you were building a case against the landlord. I know. I'm sorry I didn't tell you." Reggie shook his head. "Don't apologize. You were 7 months pregnant, working doubles, on your feet for 10 hours, and you never complained once. I thought you needed the job. Turns out, you needed the lease agreement. I needed both." Reggie looked at Elena, sleeping, tiny fingers curled against Sophia's collarbone. "She's beautiful." "She is. What's her name?" "Elena." "That's a good name." Sophia smiled. "It's his mother's name, the only person in his family who ever treated me like I belonged." Reggie nodded. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Sophia walked out through the front door. She stood on the sidewalk, the same sidewalk where she had stood after her shifts, feet aching, back burning, belly heavy, texting Rachel photographs of invoices at 11 p.m. The building hadn't changed. The valet stand was still there. The white tablecloths were still visible through the window, but Sophia had changed. 5 months ago, she was a pregnant woman wiping tables in a damp uniform, leaning on the marble because standing was too hard. Today, she was the woman who had taken back $340 million from the man who told her she'd end up right back where she started. She hadn't ended up where she started. She had ended up somewhere he never imagined she could reach. And she had gotten there the same way she had always gotten everywhere, by doing the work nobody wanted to do, in the place nobody expected her to be, with evidence nobody thought she was smart enough to find. Tilda was waiting in the car. She had Elena's car seat ready. Sophia buckled her daughter in and sat in the passenger seat. "You okay?" Tilda asked. "I'm okay, Mama." "You sure? You looked at that building for a long time." Sophia looked at the rearview mirror. Bellamy's was behind them. The building that sat on $74 million in hidden real estate. The building where she had wiped tables and photographed leases and served dinner to the man who stole from her. The building that had been the key to everything. I was saying goodbye. To what? To the version of me that believed him when he said I'd never be more than this. Tilda reached across and took her daughter's hand. She held it the way she had held it when Sophia was 6 years old and afraid of thunderstorms. Firm, warm, the grip of a mother who has watched her child walk through fire and come out holding something the fire couldn't touch. "You were always more than this, baby. He just couldn't see it." "I know, but now he can." Tilda started the car. They drove home. Elena slept the whole way. Connor Cole sat in a blue suit at a corner booth and looked at his pregnant ex-wife wiping a table in a damp uniform. He saw what he wanted to see, a woman who had failed. A woman who had ended up exactly where he predicted. A woman whose belly confirmed that he had moved on and she hadn't. He didn't see the phone in her apron. He didn't see the photographs on it. He didn't see the lease she had memorized, the invoices she had copied, the reservation records she had screenshotted, or the 31-page motion her attorney was filing the next morning. He saw a waitress. She was a forensic investigator. He said, "You'll end up right back where you started." She was 4 months into a case that would take back $340 million. He thought she was desperate. She was strategic. Sophia Moreno didn't work at Bellamy's because she needed $11.50 an hour. She worked there because the restaurant sat on a $74 million lie, and the only way to prove it was to be inside the building, behind the counter, close enough to photograph the lease on the wall and the man at table 7. She worked 9-hour shifts at 7 months pregnant. She wiped tables with swollen ankles. She carried trays with a child pressing against her spine. And every night, after her shift, she sat at her kitchen table and built the case that nobody believed she could build. Because nobody thought a waitress in a damp uniform could outthink an attorney billing $1,100 an hour. She could. She did. And when the judge read the motion, the $120,000 settlement became $340 million. And the man who said, "She gets nothing," lost everything he tried to hide. Some people think divorce is the end of a woman's story. Sophia Moreno proved it was the beginning of the most expensive investigation her ex-husband never saw coming. And it was conducted from the one place he thought she couldn't reach him. The restaurant where he dined every other Tuesday on property he swore didn't exist, while the mother of his child served the table next to his. She wasn't wiping tables, she was building a case. And when the case was done, she wiped him clean. Click the video on your right to see the 3 other corporate espionage cases where self-representation destroyed billion-dollar companies, the legal loopholes they exploited, and the one statute that changes everything. You will see the patterns these strategists use, the mistakes their opponents make, and the exact moment when the trap closes.